The purpose of this screencast is to help support you in making your way through option C, where we explore the civics and community around a youth mental health issue. So, remembering for the why part of your task, you need to pick one of the three options. Option A is the biology of well-being. Option B is the geography of well-being. This is option C. You only need to do one of those. You have approximately 20 hours to work on this, but you have 40 hours across weeks 1 and 2 to work on the why, which is this section, and the how, which is your proposal. A reminder that in applied learning, you have the ability to manage your time according to what needs to be done and what you feel like working on at that moment in time, but you do need to make sure you hit all your deadlines. So this is also going to be necessary to help support your proposal, which is the how phase. So working on this will give you the why, which helps you sell the proposal. So you do need to do this probably near the beginning. However, you might start working on some of the research required for this. Then you might start writing up some of your proposal. Then you'll come back to this. And that's perfectly okay, as long as everything's done by the end of week 2. But this screencast is going to complement the written instructions that you've got to help guide you through what you need to do for option C. So for option C, we are learning about youth mental health and community supports that are available. And by the end, you should be able to explain key facts about your chosen mental health issue or issues, and you can identify community groups and services that are available to potentially help someone who needs it. So the overall map, you need to understand the task. You need to do some research. You need to look into what those community groups are that are available. You'll do some research that involves data analysis, whether you generate data or you actually find data online and then present it yourself using graphs or charts, but there will be a mathematical component. You'll do some comparisons and analytics. Then once you've done all that, that's all the background work that gets you ready to write the actual report. The actual report itself should only take a few hours out of that 20-hour window, because you've done all the background work. And then when you get down to actually write it into the structure, it shouldn't take you too long to do. The final stage is editing and finishing. So there is a timeline available in the written instructions. You can see here, this is the first stage, understand and plan. So if I go back to my roadmap, that's understand over here. So understand and plan, and it estimates about 2 hours for that. Now you might need longer. You might get it done in an hour. And if that's the case, you might have more time to spend on the research, because that's actually where you need a bit more time. That's okay. But there's a rough guide there so you can help stay on task. But the first stage is to unpack a youth mental health issue and to understand the issue and to map out what you think you might need to research and explore. If you do that work first, instead of going, oh, what do I need, what do I need, what do I need, you've already planned and mapped it and thought about it. You've packaged the task in a way that you get it, and then you'll be able to really focus your energy and make sure you're doing the right thing and using your time efficiently. So that is the first step. There are a number of key words that are listed in the written instructions as well that will help you if you understand what they mean. So learning the definitions and making sure you understand them is also part of understanding and planning. So that's stage 1, approximately 2 hours, give or take, depending on what you need. Research. There's a number of youth mental health issues that you may choose to look at. Anxiety, depression, stress, social isolation and loneliness is actually a growing concern amongst young people. We're more connected than ever through things like social media, yet have never felt more alone. It's really quite strange, but it's also a real thing. So you are asked to pick a couple of different issues and research them. In your written instructions, there is a bit of a template for you to take notes. So it kind of looks like what's here on the slide. What is the issue? What are some of the causes? What are the effects? But take notes as you work your way through. As you're taking notes, as it says there, save your sources. If you use a website, write it down. If you use a book, write it down. You need to include those in your final report, so make sure you reference them as you go. So you can see there's a bit of a checkpoint. There are checkpoints in your written instructions too. You've picked an issue, you've researched it, you've made some notes, and you've kept references as you go. Again, it's estimating about 4 hours on that. Maybe you need 5 because you really find it fascinating and you want to dig deeper. That's great. That's awesome. That's actually what we want. Um, so you might need to take time from somewhere else. But that's a rough guide, again, to help you stay on track. Community responses, there'll be a range of these. So local council would offer a range of support services for people that are battling with significant challenges like youth mental health concerns. We're probably quite familiar, a lot of us, with Headspace and some of the work they do. What do they do? How does it work? Uniting is another service that we engage with quite a lot. What services do they have? How does it work? And how does it help? Indigenous Australians have a range of services through things like Rumbalara and elsewhere. So what are they? How do they work? So again, you've got a template to help you. What's the group? What do they do? How does it actually help people who are struggling with youth mental health concerns? There'll be more than just those 4. So make sure you do plenty of research. You can see you've got 4 hours allocated to this. Tons of time to really go out there and have a look and see what you can find. Again, write it down. Keep your references. Just a note on when you're writing things down too, it has to be in your words. Do not copy and paste. Copy and pasting means often you don't understand it, and that will come across in your report. Copying and pasting also means it's plagiarism. You'll be told to do it again. Do it right the first time. You've got 20 hours. It's tons of time. Do it right. Save the time because you're not going to be asked to do it again. Do it right first time, then you just get to move on. So find your data. There's a couple of options. There's details about this in the written instructions. You might choose to run an anonymous survey to get a feeling for the rates of anxiety or the rates of stress that people feel, or how often people feel stressed. If how on any given day, what are people feeling out of 10? If 10 is so stressed they can hardly go on, 1 is so calm they're about to fall asleep. On a scale of 1 to 10, you could ask people how stressed they are. Again, you need to incorporate some data and some mathematics. You may choose to get your own data, and that's fine. It needs to be anonymous. We don't want you actually asking people, what is your name and tell me if you're stressed. They won't answer that question, most likely. And you don't need it. Don't need to know who. We just want to get a feel for what's going on. So you might run a survey and do it that way. Or there's a lot of information online, and we actually participate in a couple of surveys and things throughout the year as a school that gives us an idea about our school community and how they feel, but also more broadly, there's a lot of information there about youth mental health and wellbeing. So you might find some information online and you take that data and you present it. So when you break down different mental health conditions, there is information out there, for example, that tells you how many individuals, a percentage, so 25% of all young people may experience a mental health concern in a 12-month period. All right, so that's 1 in 4. Of those 25%, it will go further and then break it down and say that 30% of them may deal with anxiety, 10% might deal with depression, etc. You might present that data in a graph or in a pie chart. So you can get your own data and present it using mathematics and graphing, or you might find data online and present it using mathematics and graphing. But either way, you must include some data. I will just say those stats and figures I talked about there, I made those up, so don't use those. You would actually need to go and do the research. So you've made your graph, you've made your pie chart. Make sure that it's accurate. Make sure that the data is reliable. Make sure there's not bias there or that it's bad data. So is it fair? Is it misleading? Is it accurate? Check it and comment on that in your report. So you're going to do comparisons between the different groups. You're going to talk about what they offer and how they support in different ways. There it talks about in your checkpoint, I can explain effectiveness and I suggest an action. We're not saying that you need to suggest one group over another, but you need to, for example, if someone was dealing with anxiety, is there a service or services that would be better than others? Because other services are actually designed to help with other concerns, like loneliness, for example. So you need to make recommendations around that, not specifically that one is better than the other. We're not going to ask you to judge them. We just want you to compare them, contrast them, look at what they do, and look at how they help. Right, so that's really important, and that will form part of your report as well. Again, approximately 3 hours on that is what we recommend. Um, think about also how we can then use these groups that you've identified in the wellbeing event. Remember, our big event is about promoting health, well-being, mental health. So who might we invite? Should we invite them? So can they do talks throughout the day? Can they offer a booth with pamphlets and information? Can they offer private sessions where people can ask questions? Who should be there? What should they do? And how will it help? Once you've done all of that research and that background work, you're ready to write your report. So again, 2 to 3 hours is all that should take because you've already done all the hard work. Must have an introduction, outline the mental health issue that you're exploring, what responses are available. In other words, what community groups are out there to actually help someone who is struggling. Present your data that you created or that you found online, but make sure you present it and analyze it. The analysis of the different groups and recommendations for what we should do with that with respect to our event. And finally, a conclusion. Don't forget over here, off to one side, you've got section 8, your references. You must include the websites, books, or anything else that you used to put together your report. There is a checklist that's like this in the written instructions. Use that to make sure you've not missed anything. Finally, you've written your report and quick, hit submit. No, not so fast. You've got a couple of hours dedicated to actually polishing it up. Have you got capital letters where there should be? Have you spelled everything correctly? Is your punctuation good? Make sure that it makes sense. Make sure that it flows. You've got 2 hours to do it. There's really no excuse to not do this. If you have a poor report, we'll give it back to you and tell you to fix it up and do it again. So you can use the couple of hours we've given you, or you can get told to do it again later and end up losing that time that you could have put to better use doing something that you probably enjoy more. So use the time that's provided. Make sure that it's a good quality report so that you do it once, do it right, and you don't get asked to do it again. If you do all that, you're pretty much at the end. So hopefully, as a result of doing this work for option C, you can explain key facts about whichever mental health issue or issues you chose to explore, and you can identify some of the groups that are out there to help people who are battling, and looked at how useful they can be and what they can actually offer somebody. So work your way through again, remembering you only have to do one of the three options, A, B, or C, but you must do one of them. 20 or so hours to work on that, 20 or so hours to work on your proposal. Both of them need to be ready by Friday of the second week. And as long as you stay on track, you are welcome to go between the different tasks, working on different things at different times. So you don't get stuck in one thing for 5 hours straight. You can change it up so that you stay on top of it and stay engaged. But remember, it all needs to be moving forward. It all needs to be done on time. And if you're doing that, then you're smashing it. Look forward to seeing the end result that you come up with.